Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, welcome back to the channel, and today we have the Open Beta 5 update notes to go over. They just released these this morning. The update should be live as this video goes out, which is pretty cool. Obviously, Bari coming in this update, some other features like HUD editor, some big balance changes as well, I think. So yeah, without further ado, let's just jump right in. So before we get into Bari, we'll go over the brief summary of the update that they've started putting in these patch notes now, which I think is pretty good. Welcome to the Smite 2 Open Beta 5 update. This update introduces our newest deity, Princess Bari, hailing from the Korean pantheon. Her unique playstyle revolves around Mystic Surge, granting her powerful burst windows where her abilities have no cooldown and gain special bonus effects. With a versatile kit blending mobility, crowd control, and hybrid scaling, Bari is sure to bring you options to the battlefield. We're also making changes to gameplay and player customization with this update. Conquest receives a significant overhaul to its goal pacing and minion mechanics, interesting, to encourage more strategic sieging and reduce unexpected snowballing. Meanwhile, we're introducing a major new feature that many have been asking about, our HUD editor, which will now give you complete control over your in-game interface. You can now play your way and set various elements such as scale and opacity. There will be music to your ears as we introduce music packs from Smite 1, allowing you to unlock and personalize your battle soundtrack. Finally, there are plenty of fresh skins and cosmetics up for grabs. Don't miss out on the brand new Silent Witch Aladdin skin or the chance to bolster your collection with favorites from Smite 1's legacy lineup. Dive into the detailed patch notes below, blah blah blah, which we will absolutely do. But that's the basic summary of the update, everything that's coming, or like most of the stuff that's coming. So of course, Bari is the new god in this update. We'll go over her very briefly here, but I do have a full video showcasing her already. They did show her like a week ago or something like that, so most people probably know what's going on with her. But if you don't and you're just watching this patch notes video fresh, we will go over her very briefly here. So she is a Korean deity. She's going to have ranged basic attacks but do magical damage, so she's kind of, I guess, what you would call like a magical ADC, but she doesn't really work like a traditional magical ADC, I wouldn't say. She's got hybrid scaling, so strength and intelligence. Her passive, you basically accumulate spirit as you damage enemies, and once you reach 100, you enter like an ascended form for 5 seconds. In the ascended form, you have AoE basic attacks. You gain bonus strength, intelligence, and attack speed, and you also get a 1 free ability cast every time you enter this ascended form, and that's 1 free basic ability cast. You can't use your ultimate this way, and the abilities that you use will also have a bonus effect if you use them as the ascended form version. The 1, you throw out a bell, it deals damage when it lands, and you can also push it around with your other abilities, so we'll get into those. So the 2, basically you swipe your fan in a cone in front of you, dealing damage. There's sort of like a closer area that will knock back. It's a bit like an Achilles 1 targeter, and if you use this ability on one of your bells, you'll pick it up and you'll throw it, and they can bounce off of walls and things like that. The ability 3, you dash for basically a short burst of speed in any direction. It's omnidirectional, kind of like a Rama dash, and then you can fire a projectile afterwards that deals magical damage when it ends. This deals pretty high damage and is based on a basic attack, and this also grants 50 of her spirit meter, and you need 100 to ascend. So this is going to give you a big burst of spirit if you want to get to that ascended form more easily and have more control over it. It also has a reduced cooldown if you do hit an enemy god with the projectile of this ability, and this can also push bells with the projectile, so you can dash and fire this at one of your bells and it'll bounce it around. And finally, the ultimate, you basically create an area that does pulsing tick damage 3 times. The first 2 deal magical damage, and the last pulse also applies to slow. But a large part of this ability is that you and allies in the area gain Guardian Spirits for 5 seconds, which is when you take lethal damage, you become immune and are silenced and disarmed for 1.5 seconds. So basically, when you're going to take lethal damage, you prevent that lethal damage and you get an Aegis effect for 1.5 seconds. So you can act while this immunity is in place, but you will completely immune that fatal hit. You won't heal or anything like that. You'll just immune the fatal hit and you'll get 1.5 seconds of Aegis, and that can affect your entire team as long as they're within the area. They don't have to stay within the area, just as soon as you walk into that area, any of your allies, and Bari gets it no matter what, even if she isn't in the area. You get this for 4 seconds, and you can just resist death once, basically. And casting this ability will immediately put you in the Mystic Surge Ascended form for 10 seconds. Normally, you only get 5 seconds of the Ascended form. If you ult, you get 10 seconds of it, and it activates immediately. So you can do some pretty cool stuff with, like, making sure that you hit a Spirit form, and then you can use your 3 to get into another one, and then ult for another one. You can get a lot of Ascended time and enhanced abilities and stuff like that. And in terms of those enhanced abilities, the 1, if you use it in the enhanced form, is going to stun when you throw it around. The 2, it will enhance all bells, so even if you had a non-enhanced bell on the ground, if you use the enhanced version of the 2, when you pick up that bell and throw it, it will become an enhanced bell, which will stun people as it goes around. And it also has plus 20% damage and knockback. And then the 3 also gets plus 20% damage dealt instantly, so it's not going to be a projectile that you throw, it's going to be an instant hit scan line after you use this ability. And again, the bells pushed are treated as Mystic Surge bells, the enhanced versions that will stun, even if they weren't an enhanced spell before. 4. If you hit them with the enhanced 3, they become an enhanced spell. But yeah, that's Bari. I don't want to spend too much time talking about her because we have seen her already earlier, like last week, and also I've got a full video on her that you may have seen already. New skins, there's an Aladdin skin coming in this patch, which is like a ninja Aladdin skin, which is pretty cool. I'll probably be buying this on launch, I think. I do play a good amount of Aladdin. It's available in the Silent Strike chest, which is going to be one of the new chests coming to the game. I believe you can also direct purchase this. I'm not entirely sure though. Some new classic skins purchasable for 100% legacy gems, of course. We have Steel Samurai Susanoo and Pool Party Jingwei. Some cross-gen skins are making it over as well. We've got Vizier Egbert Beakington Ra, Court Archer Cupid, and Court Charmer Aphrodite. And from Divine Legacy, there's Supernova Pele as well. HUD editor is coming in this update, so players can now access the HUD editor in-game via the escape menu to customize the scale, opacity, and position of various HUD elements. This feature is available on all platforms with this update. And so yeah, it's probably not quite as feature-rich as like Smite 1's HUD editor was, but you can move everything around and scale everything and change the opacity of everything. So if you have a specific HUD layout you like for me, I'm going to make my map a bit bigger, but make it much less opaque and put it like closer to the middle of the screen. That's something I always do. Maybe I'll make a cursed HUD like I did with Smite 1 when they initially released the HUD editor just to piss you guys off. We'll absolutely have to see about that. Now, for real though, it's quite a cool feature to have in the game. You know, I'm probably going to move my active items maybe up a little bit so they're in a little bit more prominent location, move my map around, all that kind of stuff. Music packs, as we mentioned, there's 68 music packs coming to the game in this update, which is kind of crazy. They're all going to be in the music chest. Unfortunately, I don't think you can direct buy any of the music packs. You are just going to have to roll the classic music chest for legacy gems or diamonds if you don't have legacy gems, which is unfortunate, but yeah, that's kind of just how it's implemented at the moment. Moving into game modes though, Conquest is getting some significant gold pacing changes. So item acquisition throughout the match has been adjusted so the players can build a tier 3 item every 5 minutes on average. Previously, this timing will get shorter as the match went on due to the higher gold scaling. This is something I've definitely noticed. I feel like minions, especially because fire minions are worth extra gold. If it's like super late game and you're killing a wave of fire minions, you can get an absolutely insane amount of gold, like 700-800 gold for like one wave. Maybe not quite that much, but it's a lot. So melee minions, they've reduced the base gold by 2 and the gold scaling is halved. Same thing with range minions. The Minotaur, just the scaling has gone down. For jungle camps, the alpha creature, which is the big one at the back, has had its base gold reduced. The scorpion base gold reduced as well, and gold scaling reduced on that as well by a lot. Instead of 1.5, it's now 0.5. And I assume these values are per minute. Player kills, the base gold reward for player kills has been increased from 150 to 200, and the inferior multiplier has been increased. So I think based on the last time they used these words inferior multiplier, this means that killing enemies that are super far behind is now going to reward less gold. It sounds like it's going to reward more because it's like a multiplier. You would think it's being multiplied by a larger number, therefore it will be bigger. But I think the way they explained this last time is if the inferior multiplier goes up, it means you get less value from killing players that are super far behind. So you're going to get more base reward on kills, but if you're killing someone that's like 0 and 5 or something, you're going to get less gold for that in this update. At least I think that's how that works. It's kind of confusing, but I think that's how that works. Minion changes. Brutes. The goal of the Brutes is to assist the players when sieging into a structure in the mid to late game. Currently, a mage usually has enough power to clear a wave by themselves at a safe distance. Now the attacking team will have the opportunity to push minions into a structure and make something happen. Yeah, I think that's good. You know, the regular melee minions and the archers just get one shot by a mage pretty easily. At least the siege minion can kind of push in. A brute will replace a melee minion in the waves at set intervals throughout the match. The first replacement happens at 7 minutes, then at 15, and finally at 23. Oh, I think I got confused for a second. These might be an entirely new feature. I thought it was just talking about the Minotaurs of the wave, but Minotaurs happen every other wave, I believe. So this might be an entirely new feature at 7 minutes, 15 minutes, and 23 minutes especially. So that's kind of interesting. I assume these will be stronger than the Minotaurs. They spawn with an anti-magic shield, making them more resistant to magical damage. Interesting, again, so that mages can't just easily clear them out. They gain 5% magical damage reduction every 3 minutes, capped at 50%. Magical in-hands will not be affected by this reduction and instead reduced by a normal amount, so only for abilities. Brutes have more health and power than a normal melee minion. They will use the champion minion model, also known as the Warhorn minion. Due to this change, minions affected by the Warhorn buff will no longer change character models. So yeah, this is interesting. I think this is pretty cool, especially that it happens at very defined periods. You know, at 7 minutes, maybe that's just going to be allowing you to kind of, if you're winning lane, push into the tier 1 a little bit. But like 15 minutes, you know, maybe when these are spawning, you could either send someone to split push, or you could utilize that to kind of like secure an objective or whatever. And then 23 minutes especially is like going to be like a big time that you're going to want to think about sieging. You know, if it's coming up to like 21 minutes, 22 minutes, you might want to think about grouping up as that wave is going to spawn. And that's going to make it a lot easier to siege phoenixes and towers and stuff like that. So you're probably going to have to play around these specific timings at a high level anyway. So I think it's pretty interesting, man. I think I do like this change. That's quite good. Minion versus minion TK. We noticed a lot of problems with minions piling up and snowballing into large waves. Thank God they're aware of this, man. I don't don't even know what causes it, but sometimes you just come and it's like, oh, there's 3 champion minions, 18 archers, and 5 melee minions pushing down my tower. How did this happen? And taking down structures by themselves without any player being there to help snowball the wave. These changes are an attempt to ensure that waves move up and down lanes at a more predictable pace if left alone. This is good. This is obviously how it worked in Smite 1 forever. In Smite 1, you could deliberately like only kill the archers and leave the melee minions alive, and you could stack up your wave a little bit, but this was just happening without any player intervention, that you would end up with like these massive 20 minion like armies running down your lane. Minions will now do a consistent amount of damage to each other at all points throughout the match. Previously, minions would struggle to clear each other as the match progressed due to their increased protections. This should help reduce the amount of minion waves snowballing without player resistance. Very good. Minion versus minion targeting. Ranged minions will now try to target minotaurs as they move forward in their normal line formation. That's good. Melee and ranged minions will now attempt to prioritize ranged minions who stand near in the melee line formation. This change supports the reduction of minion wave snowballing without player resistance. So again, just trying to help out with this. Fire minions no longer grant bonus gold when slain. I think I do like this change as well. As I mentioned a little bit further up, like if you're killing a fire wave at 35 minutes in, you can get like 500, 600 gold from a single minion wave, which is just kind of ridiculous. You know, if the enemy's like dealing with a fire giant or whatever, and you're shoving out the wave in the opposite lane, and you get like 2 or 3 fire waves, you can get an entire item from that. It's kind of ridiculous. So I think this is good that they're no longer going to give bonus gold. Structure changes. Tier 1 tower pen increased from 10 to 20. Tier 2 from 20 to 30. Phoenix from 30 to 40. So a little bit of a revert of the tower changes that they made before. It used to be that tier 1 was 30, tier 2 was 40, and Phoenix was 50. I don't love this. I kind of liked the changes to towers, but I guess, you know, you got to balance the game for everyone. A small counter under the structure's objective health bar displays how many friendly minions are near the enemy's tower. That's a nice little QOL change. The owner of the obsidian dagger will now have effect applied to their nameplate. This is also good. Just a little bit more awareness of who has the obsidian dagger, so it's not as much of a surprise. You can kind of play around it and try and like CC them, burst them down. Runic bomb can now destroy the door in the fire giant's pit. Pretty cool. Just another functionality for that. It can now be placed further away and now has a throw animation. Oh, cool. It has a travel time of 0.5 seconds. Okay, so you can kind of like throw it pretty far now. That's interesting. Rather than having to like necessarily give it to your tank and they have to walk up and place it on the Phoenix or the base door or whatever, you can kind of just like throw it from range. The fountain will now recover a mana and health every 0.2 seconds instead of every 1 second. The amount of recovery per second still remains the same. So this is basically a change they made in Smite 1 a good while back. Whereas instead of healing you in massive chunks, it's going to heal you just slowly over time to give you a little bit more consistent fountain healing. The tower base rings have been added. We saw these on the PTS. They look really good in my opinion. Just a much more defined area that shows you the tower is going to hit you if you are in this range. And it just looks good, dude. You know, it breaks up the floor texture a little bit so it's not all just this like stone path all the way up the lane. You know, it breaks things up a little bit. These are really nice in my opinion. Joust, they have increased the Titan max health from 10k to 12.5k. I don't play much Joust, but I assume games were ending too fast or whatever. Titan was too weak there. Moving into God balance though, Achilles is getting a nerf to combat dodge. 2 seconds at all ranks of his combat dodge, which is a pretty significant nerf there. Achilles is pretty strong though, especially in jungle, but also in solo he's pretty solid as well, so understandable he'll be getting a nerf there. Bacchus getting a buff. They have increased the protections while tipsy from 5 to 6% and while smash from 10 to 12%. Probably not gonna make Bacchus into a force or anything like that. He is pretty bad, but some nice little buffs for him there. Bologna getting some nerfs. They have decreased the slam damage on bludgeon from 80 to 340. It's now 70 to 310. Scourge, they have decreased the healing from 7% prots to 5% prots. There was also fixed an issue where the heal amount of scaling was missing from the tooltip. So just some very small Bologna nerfs ultimately. I don't think she needed much, to be honest. It's not like Bologna was completely OP or anything. She's mainly being played as a counter matchup to some of the other top solo laners. Shark getting a buff, also a good counter matchup to some of the other top solo laners. This might be a bit scary. They have increased the base healing per tick on Rain Dance and also increased the heal scaling. At least this is buffing, you know, only regular Chak though. Chak is generally strongest with his aspect at the moment. That's how most people are playing him at top level, so they're buffing non-aspect Chak here. Fenrir getting his shift. His 3 brutalize. They have decreased the protections while channeling from 5 up to 25 plus 2 per level. It's now 5 up to 17 plus 2 per level. And the aspect of loyalty now gets those protections. In fact, it gets a little bit more. It gets 7 up to 35 plus 2.5 per level when you're in the aspect. There were also some changes on the PTS where like Fenrir's aspect of loyalty was giving like his life seal to nearby allies or something like that. This isn't in the patch notes. I'm not sure if that's going to be there. It was quite cool though, to be honest. You know, you can give AoE life seal to your teammates, and I think it was like their life seal heals you as well for a certain percentage. But that's not in the notes. They might have walked back that change or aren't ready to release it yet or something, but that was something that was on the PTS. Mekate's aspect, they have increased the cooldown of Spell Eater from 9 seconds to 12 seconds. This is good. This ability in Conquest is not really an issue. Mekate aspect isn't that strong in Conquest, but I've heard in casual modes it was just absolutely dominant, and I felt it in Assault a little bit when I played some Assault. And 9 seconds was just absolutely ridiculous for this. You know, with a little bit of CDR, it was basically permanently up in these modes where like you just kind of stare at each other a lot, like Joust and Arena and Assault. It unfortunately does mean that this aspect is going to be even more useless in Conquest, but that's just kind of how it is until maybe we can get non-Conquest balance in. You know, if they do end up adding non-Conquest balance, which they probably will do at some point, just a matter of what they want to prioritize. You know, this could probably go back down to 9 seconds in Conquest, but remain at 12 or 13 or 14 or whatever in casual modes, as much as it takes for this to not completely ruin casual modes. Hercules nerf. They have decreased your protections on mitigate wounds from 20 to 40. It's now 5 to 25 plus 15% of your item protections. Okay, this is a fairly smart change, I think. Obviously, jungle Herc is what's kind of really strong right now. Solo Herc is pretty balanced, in my opinion. So they're giving him arguably a buff to solo in Herc, because 15% of your procs from items is a pretty substantial increase. 15% increase on all of your procs that you're already getting from items is pretty massive. So for solo in Herc that's even building, you know, 3 or 4 tank items, this is definitely going to be a benefit for him. But for jungle Herc, it's not going to be as much of a benefit. Khepri getting a shift. Solar Flare, they have decreased the cooldown by 1 second at all ranks, but the aspect of laceration, they have decreased the bonus damage scaling based on int by 5% and the max HP damage by 1%. So yeah, just buffing Khepri overall, but also nerfing his aspect. I think it makes sense. Obviously, Khepri is used basically entirely with this aspect. You don't really see base Khepri anymore. This is a solid shift in the right direction, but I just think they need to do more with Khepri's aspect. You know, make it changes or some of his other abilities into more aggressive options. Differentiate him a little bit more from regular base Khepri. Mordred is getting some fairly substantial changes this update, because his aspect that we used to know is being folded into his base kit. So aspect Mordred is just regular Mordred now, and he's getting a new aspect in this update. So yeah, as they say here, aspect of rage has been integrated into the base kit. So this is all of the stuff from aspect of rage. Basically the way you've been playing Mordred 99% of the time for the last few months since his aspect came out, that's now going to be regular Mordred, and he's going to be getting a new aspect. But he's also getting some other pretty substantial changes, as we'll see here. So the buff and debuff stat count on this 2 has been increased from 4 to 5. The base attack speed has been decreased from 40 to 30. Gaining blood rage stacks now also provides 5% increased attack speed per stack. Interesting. So this ability can now provide more like 55% total attack speed. That's pretty good. Hitting enemy gods with the initial fire now applies 2 stacks of the protection debuff to enemies hit and 2 stacks of the buff to Mordred instantly, which is pretty cool. The projectile damage scaling has been increased from 50% to 70% int, so just a little bit more of a reason to build int on Mordred if you're going to do that. And the ultimate, your character rotation is no longer locked in the pre-fire. This is a pretty big one. It means you can actually Mordred ult in point blank range and be able to actually hit people with it. Normally with Mordred, you have to be at least a few character lengths away to have any shot of hitting someone with this. If you ulted in point blank range, you were kind of just never going to hit it because the turning circle is too large and you couldn't turn the pre-fire. So this is good, and this ability now provides a heal each time an enemy god is hit, and it's 30 up to 50 plus 25% int, so another reason to build in on Mordred there potentially. And finally for on Mordred, we have his aspect of rage rework, which is going to be the new one. So basic attacks while blood rage is active no longer provide bonus protections or attack speed, but instead your non-ultimate and non-passive ability cooldowns are lowered by 1 second. Additionally, shoulder charge deals more damage if it has hit an enemy god more recently. So 10 bonus damage per stack, and the buff stacks up to 5 times. The stacks decrease 1 second at a time instead of altogether on expiration. So yeah, it's kind of it's a weird aspect. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not, to be honest. You basically pop your 2. This does proc on non-gods, so you can pop your 2 and be hitting like a totem or a minion wave and getting refunds on your other cooldowns, which is kind of cool. So yeah, some pretty substantial changes for Mordred. Aspect is going to be the base kit now. He's got a bunch of other changes, and he's got a new aspect in this update. Nemesis, the 1 is getting 10% more strength scaling, so effectively 20% if you can hit both those dashes. Ramos 2 is getting a 1 second duration increase, 10% scaling increase on his ultimate, so that's a pretty substantial amount if you hit all 3 shots, obviously. And the aspect of precision is getting a nerf. They have decreased his base attack speed from 0.76 to 0.7. So by getting a buff, aspect of prey, they have increased the intelligence scaling on his 1 from 50% to 75, and sickening strike, this ability now heals for the full amount when the aspect is enabled instead of 50% like it was before. So yeah, just trying to buff up Sobek's aspect a little bit because it really does not get used whatsoever. Thanatos shift. So Harvester of Souls is passive. They have increased the heal from killing gods from 20% to 25 and from minions 7% to 8.5%. Death Scythe, they have increased the strength scaling by 10%, and aspect of reaping, they have decreased the bonus damage scaling from 3.5% to 2.5% on Soul Reap, and the heal from 0.75 to 0.5. So yeah, just buffing up regular Thanatos, decreasing the power level of aspect Thanatos. It makes sense. Ever since the aspect came out, no one plays regular Thanatos that much anymore, to be honest. It's got like an 85-90% aspect usage rate, and it's just simply better. So yeah, you definitely do want to nerf this down a little bit. Honestly, for me, with these these kind of changes, I would rather see them, you know, not nerf the percent health damage or whatever on this kind of stuff, or like the health that you can gain, but rather just take the strength scaling away or base damage away from some of his other abilities or some of his utility or whatever. Even like decrease the execute threshold or something like that. You know, do something else that makes it less like base Thanatos without nerfing the specific aspects that make the aspect strong. I don't know, that's just kind of how I feel about it. You know, I don't think you should nerf like the thing that makes the aspect unique. You should nerf the other things so that it's not as competitive with base Thana in a lot of ways. But overall, this is still a pretty good change. I think, you know, it's just going to buff up regular Thana, nerf down aspect Thana. It should be a little bit more competitive with each other now. Thor's warning visual has gone from 1.2 seconds to 0.5 seconds on his ult, and it now should match the duration of even Smite 1. It's interesting that they said they were going to try and find a middle ground between Smite 2's like longer warning notification for Thor ult and Smite 1's shorter one. It seems like they've just gone straight to Smite 1 Thor ult, which is kind of crazy, especially with how strong Thor is right now. I mean, I won't complain. I'm a Thor abuser, but I feel like maybe they should have gone for some kind of a middle ground here. We'll see how it feels though, because ultimately, even in Smite 1, you can kind of react to Thor ult if you're really paying attention. Vulcan getting a buff. The efficiency mod, they have increased the CDR from 10 to 20, and the thermal mod, they have increased the int scaling bonus from 20% to 30%. And finally, Zeus Chain Lightning, they have increased the damage scaling from 50% in to 60% in, which I don't love. I feel like this ability is already so good for Zeus, but I guess sure, 10% more in scaling on Chain Lightning. Moving into item balance though, Arendite is new in this update, so it's 25-50 gold, 65 strength, 15 cooldown rate, and the active enemy gods within 17.6 meters become revealed for 10 seconds. The reveal persists through stealth, which is different to Smite 1, so if you do use this on a Loki or a Morrigan or an Izanami, you're going to be able to just follow them. If any god is revealed, you gain 25% bonus movement speed, which is pretty massive, and the first time you damage a revealed god, you deal 30 plus 50% strength bonus physical damage, and the cooldown is 75 seconds. So yeah, Arendite is going to be an active item in Smite 2. It's not going to be whenever you cast your ultimate, much like Pridwin is in Smite 2. Elixir of Strength and Intelligence are both getting nerfed down, so 75 to 50 on the Strength, 120 to 80 on the Intelligence. I think this is good. It does get a little bit ridiculous sometimes in the late game when people have like 2 of these pots stacked up, and it's just like everyone is absolutely one-shotting everyone no matter what. So I think this is overall pretty decent. It will also help out the tank dying too quickly late game problem a little bit, because obviously tanks can't really do anything to get more tanky once they're done with their build, whereas damage dealers can infinitely get more damage by just buying these potions. And you know, that's kind of another issue in itself. I do think they should add some way for tanks to scale their tankiness infinitely, the same way damage dealers can scale their damage infinitely. But nerfing these down, I think, does make a lot of sense. This is good. Spectral Armor, they have increased the attack speed debuff aura from 20% to 25, and the critical chance by the same amount. Void Shield goes from 15% pen to 10% pen. Absolutely, this was necessary. When they nerfed Titan's Bane from 20 down to 15, Titan's Bane and Void Shield having the same amount of pen was just, you never build Titan's Bane again, really, at that point. Void Stone is getting the same nerf, which again, I think makes a lot of sense. Stone of Binding, they have decreased the physical and magical protection debuff from 15 to 10, but they have increased the base procs on the item. So yeah, a little bit less flat pen going on from Stone of Binding, but you are going to get a little bit more defensive stats, 5 more of each. Devourer's Gauntlet getting a buff, I think this makes sense. They've increased the strength per stack from 0.3 to 0.5, so that's the total of max stacks from 45 to 55, so a 10 strength increase on Devo's Gauntlet. And yeah, I think this is good. Devo's is pretty bad at the moment, honestly. Even fully stacked, it wasn't really providing you all that much, and it's so much slower than something like a Kitten's Rush or a Braggy's Rush or whatever. Heartseeker, they fixed the issue where the pen was listed twice, and they have also buffed Heartseeker by 5 strength. I don't know why they're doing this, dude. Hydra's as well gets 5 more strength. These 2 items are like in every single jungler build ever. I would much rather see them buff up some other jungler items that aren't quite so broken. Like Heartseeker's completely broken. Hydra's is arguably pretty broken, in my opinion, on the gods that use it well. Especially since they added 10 cooldown rate to it recently. It has a lot of stats you want. It's infinite mana. It's a lot of damage. I feel like I would look at other jungler items to buff than these 2, but I guess they've identified that like jungler builds aren't super strong or whatever. And finally, Magi's Cloak, they have increased the bubble cooldown from 60 seconds to 90, and the cost by 100 gold. I think this makes sense. Everyone was buying Magi's quite a lot in the OB4 update, and 1 minute is a little bit too low. I think 90 seconds is much more reasonable. But yeah, that is it for the OB5 update notes. Some pretty big sweeping game balance here in terms of like item balance, god balance, even some major conquest changes in terms of like gold scaling and stuff like that. A bunch of QOL changes like the new tower like flooring and stuff like that, runic bomb being able to be thrown, obsidian dagger nameplate, just a whole bunch of stuff in this update that's really good in my opinion. HUD editor as well, obviously, new skins, all that good stuff. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this update down below. It should be live as this video goes out, and I will catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.